right, let's go ahead and get into it. So we're going to go ahead and break down the Philadelphia 76ers versus the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, the regular season bears no real meaning into this series because KD's not walking through that door. Kyrie's not walking through that door. Ben Simmons isn't walking through that door. But let me touch on this before we get started. A couple people left me comments on my next video, and thank you for watching. But one of the questions that was posed to me was like, hey, how can you pick the Cleveland Cavaliers to win the series versus the Knicks when the Cleveland Cavaliers were beaten 3 times by the Knicks in the regular season? And I'm just of the belief that regular season basketball and postseason basketball almost don't have any semblance. The level of intensity obviously picks up in the postseason, but you can scout in ways that you can't in the regular season. You can force players to different tendencies. The level of energy and intensity physically is brought up because you're not playing back to backs. It's just a different game. You're essentially switching the game to a football game where you can scout, you can really force people into bad tendencies. That's why a lot of players who do really well in the regular season struggle in the postseason because guys say, hey, this guy drives right the majority of the time. We're forcing him left on every play. You can't really do that when you're coming in on a 3 and 4 night and you get to your hotel at 3 a.m. You can't really focus on what the other guy has and really keep it in your mind. So let's go ahead and talk about the 3 keys for each team. So let's start with the Sixers. Now, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but the number one key for the Sixers is can they get a sweep? This team, again, does not have Kyrie, does not have KD, does not have Ben Simmons. Um, if you were to rank the teams in both conferences, the playoff teams, from the worst to the best, I think most people would rank Brooklyn Nets as the worst team in the playoffs. I mean, this was a godsend to Philadelphia. This should be a quick series. Philadelphia has their minds on not just this series, but a championship. And to do that, they're going to have to go on the road to Boston, on the road to the Bucks potentially. They need to rest up. You have players with health issues on this team, injury prone issues. Let's make a quick work of this series and move on. The second storyline is one of the players that I talked about being injury prone, James Harden. He had an Achilles injury that was bothering him towards the end of the season. He's going to get over a week rest. Is that enough for him to, bounce back from it and have a good playoff performance? His playoff performance, this whole playoffs is going to be judged because of his struggles in general. But can he really, put his best foot forward? No pun intended, and have a good series? Or is this Achilles thing something that's going to linger and hobble him throughout the whole playoffs? Because if it's something that lingers, you could see a scenario where Brooklyn, because of their glut of wing defenders, obviously they have Mikal Bridges, Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal. They have a lot of people to throw at him. Could they have a situation where they throw one of those guys at him and send the house at Joel Embiid and make the other players beat them? Tobias Harris and Maxey are servable players, but obviously the 1-2 punch on this team is James Harden and Joel Embiid. Does James Harden come to play, and is James Harden going to be hobbled with that Achilles injury? And finally, it's the bench unit. Um, the Sixers have bled points with their bench all year. Now, Doc Rivers loves going to bench mobs. Hopefully, he's going to stagger bench minutes here. But the Nets are one of the more deeper teams in the league. Can the Sixers hold at least even in the minutes when Joel Embiid sits? And that's just something that they need to look forward in just the whole playoffs. Can they get to the point where when Joel Embiid sits, it's not a train wreck? Um, in addition to that, they've been toggling between Maxey and Melton. Is this a scenario where, hey, if they start struggling with bench minutes in game one and game two, do they toggle back to where Maxey is coming off the bench and Melton starts? On the net side of things, is obviously number one on the list is Mikal Bridges. He's been a revelation since they traded for him, averaging 27 points a game on great shooting splits, 49% from the field, 37% from three. Um, they've been struggling scoring. And as I mentioned, that Jock Vaughn, like, explain to me why Cam Thomas did 40 points back to back and he's getting DNP CDs on a team that cannot score. He did 40 points again tonight. Now, obviously, that was in a pretty much a G League game, but this is a kid that can score. Why doesn't he play? I know it's a deep team, but make that make sense. You guys can't score. Let a guy that can score play. But back to what I'm saying. Is this guy, Mikael Bridges, is this what might be a star turn from him that Paul George had, that Tracy McGrady had, where we thought he was one thing and he's completely different. He's actually a superstar. Now, I talked about his good shooting splits, but one thing that he's going to need to improve on if he's truly going to get to that level is the assists. He's averaging about 2 to 3 a game. For him to be a really reputable star player, he needs to get that to the 5, 6, 7 range. He's going to be going against a reputable defender and PJ Tucker, who's going to be physical with him, who's going to body him. He's more slender type guy. So, I mean, the number one thing with him is, hey, is this play going to continue in the playoffs when you have a great defender in PJ Tucker and a great rim protector in Joel Embiid right behind him, or is this going to tail off? And can he improve that assist level? Because if he does, then the Nets have a major, major building block to build on. The next key I would say is Nick Claxton. Nick Claxton gives about 40 pounds to Joel Embiid, but Nick Claxton was someone who, at the beginning of the season, was talked about as a potential All Star. He had a really great start to the season. Can he? I don't think he can hold Embiid in check, but can he keep the damage to the 25 to 30 point range, not let it get up to the 30 to 40 point range. Joel Embiid plays a lot at the nail now. He doesn't really bang in the post like he used to. So, maybe the size difference isn't going to be as devastating as it was in years past. But what does he give them, Nick Claxton? In addition to that, he struggled with shooting free throws last year versus Boston. It was terrible. I think he had one of the worst shooting percentages of all time in that series versus Boston last year. On the offensive end, what does he give them? Does he give them offensive rebounding? He has a speed advantage over Joel Embiid. Is he running the floor and attacking them that way? And finally, what rotations does Jacque Vaughn use? This is a team that can literally go 12 deep. They have a ton of different NBA players. One of the things that Philadelphia has struggled with in general because of James Harden and Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris is transition. Teams get a lot of transition points versus them. A strategy that the Nets could employ is say, hey, we're running from start, makes or misses, we're running. We're pushing the pace. We're going to try to wear these guys down, wear Joel Embiid down, wear James Harden down. And on defense, we're pressing. We're going to full court press James Harden the whole game. We want to put pressure, pressure, pressure. We have a deep team. Put your fist up in the air and when you need a blow, but let's put the pressure on these guys, and that's a opportunity for us to win. Does Jacques Vaughn do that? I think that I've seen like a Nick Nurse do that in some situations. Is that something that he would look at, or is he just going to play it straight up and do as most coaches do and reduce the rotation to 8 to 9 guys when we get to playoff time? So those are the keys I think for both teams. If I'm going to make a prediction, I'm obviously have to go with the Sixers. I think the Sixers actually can get a sweep here, and that would be my prediction. This is a make or break playoff season for James Harden, but also for Joel Embiid to really show that the MVP talk, the it's not in vain, and that these guys are both all time players. A quick series will really set them up nicely, especially if Boston is going to play Miami, which is my prediction that Miami is going to win that playing game. Miami gave them a lot of trouble last year. There might be some psychological residue there, and that might end up being a nice long series, and that would be great for Philadelphia. They could rest up and actually have a tactical advantage going in to Boston potentially for game one. So I'm going to predict a sweep here 4-0. Let me know what you think. Definitely leave me a comment. I'm trying to respond to all the comments. I appreciate all the love. Definitely subscribe. And as always, the game is the game.